Greetings from Izu Peninsula. Unfortunately, I won't make it for today, but I'd like to leave some thoughts about UN Security Council reforms that has been asked by Dr. Hasegawa, a good friend of mine, although some generations away. Well, anyway, I find it very useful to think about the current situation in the world, namely the Sudan war and Ukraine war, and how UN has reacted to those wars, how effectively they have done, and more recently, how COVID has ended. I mean, WHO has officially of emergent stages of COVID-19. So those are the examples that are criteria with which we can make a judgment about whether the UN system still works or not. My answer is positive, especially coming from the international finance background as a former senior economist at the World Bank until the early 2000s. I enjoyed a lot, first of all, professionally. And I did a lot of contributions financially to my clients in African countries. Some of them went into war, actually, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, West Bank, Gaza, and so on. But nevertheless, they did something great. So I positively evaluate the UN system. But when it comes to the UN security system, unfortunately, my operations at the World Bank economist is a little bit far from that political thing or decision-making thing. The World Bank is clearly a family of UN system on social commission, social economic commission. So I work with UN laissez-passer whenever I go. But again, UN Security Council, I don't know. And I know that it has not been functioned as it originally intended to be, because it was created as a result of historical compromise of big powers, especially US, UK, USSR, COR, ROC, Republic of China, and for some reason, France. Remember when the issues of P5 reform has started, it was exactly to 1992 when Russia was replaced by the USSR, the original country foundation. Now we already know 20 years before that incident, the replacement of the permanent seat of Republic of China and ROC. ROC was an original member, but RPC replaced it. But these replacements were not done with the official agreement. I mean, we should have probably revised the UN Security Treaty, or at least went through the approval. But these are politics, and it's far from what I know as a UN family stuff. How the international community, especially the UN family, should cope with the next challenge. Well, COVID-19 was one, but every decade we are facing with some SARS, MARS, and now COVID. And I don't think we have effectively and smartly dealt with that until now. So we have to have a mechanism. Let's say sustainable development goals revisited, because I support SDGs goals. Nobody can object it, but I have a little problem because even if you don't follow any of the indicators, 169 indicators or 17 different goals, there's no penalty of it. So we have to implement some sort of enforcement mechanism so that SDGs can become an international law. And for that reason, for exactly the same reason, UN Security Council, the reform should be done comprehensively. Not only the Security Council issues, but it should include more comprehensive UN reform. Of course, ideally, we want the institution to become supranational, which is currently international. So I am a strong believer in the supranationalism. Believer because if I talk about that, it's like a religion. So given the international framework, not supranational framework, to make it more enforceable, workable, we have to establish at least three functions more explicitly: legislative, executive, and judicial. Currently we have them, but whether they are effectively working or not is a different issue. I have a mixed feelings. So I personally do not totally agree whether Japan should be a member of the new Security Council, because but anyway, the fundamental issue to be asked is whether Japan should do this or not, or humiliate or not. Nobody really cares. But if for the ongoing war in Sudan, Ukraine stop with the help of UN, we have to make sure that the UN Security Council, together with legislative body, executive body, judicial body. So, Mr. Putin, you may be a war criminal, and that you should be facing a trial. If that is possible, I think that one of the incidents we have to take a look at is whether Mr. Putin, as a war criminal, is brought into the face of the judicial, is one observation we should make. And if that's possible, really, we still have a hope for the United Nations for peacemaking functions. That's it for me. Goodbye.